Geeky, welcome back to a brand new video, and today is another ranking video. So if you remember back in 2020, I did the modern ranking series where I took every modern Doctor Who series and ranked every episode. I'm going to be doing that, but with one of the classic series, Season 8. Now, I'm not going to do this with every classic season because it's too long. I haven't seen all of Classic Who. You've got the missing episodes, which is a bit of a problem, and I don't have as much drive to do it. But I'm doing this one as a one-off, mainly because the new collection box set came out and I've binged them all. So I figured, get some content out of it. So Season 8 is Jon Pertwee's second season as the Doctor. It introduces Katie Manning as Jo Grant, his companion, and it's the first season with the Master, Roger Delgado, who I would say is the best Master. And he appears in every single story, and I figured, I think it's quite a solid season. Not Pertwee's best, but certainly not his worst. And there's some cracking stories, so let's rank them. Number 5, The Claws of Axos. Now, I don't dislike the story, I do like it, but it's never one that really stands out to me. It's a very typical Pertwee story, that obviously Jon Pertwee's there, you've got the unit family, the brig, Captain Yates, Sergeant Benson, you've got the Master, you've got Jo, his most iconic companion, you've got some political stuff, like some political characters, and then you've got like the alien invasion stuff. It is very typical of the era, and yeah, it's not the best of the alien invasion sort of trope. It's not terrible. It's a nice 4-parter, so it's a nice breezy watch. The Axon designs, when they're in like their human form, like the humanoid form, they are pretty cool. Except when they are in their monstery form, they do look a bit naff. Some really good action set pieces as well, and it's the first time where you properly see the Doctor and Master's dynamic as true old friends, because the previous two stories he was very much just the villain. But here, the Doctor and the Master, they're working together to try and stop the Axons, and it's a really cool dynamic that I like. But yeah, it's enjoyable when you're watching it, but not one that really is, great. And after a rewatch, it's not really changed much of my opinion on it, to be honest. Number 4, Colony in Space. Now, this tends to be the one that people put in last place, and I can kind of see why, but also kind of not as well, because I do quite enjoy it. Now, yeah, it is a 6-parter, so it does kind of drag on a bit, and it is a bit waffly and long, but if I'm being honest, I quite like it. It's the first story in the Pertwee era where you visit an alien planet, which is really exciting, very refreshing as well, because having just Earthbound stories all the time, eventually the novelty is going to wear off, so it's good to sort of break it up a bit with having an off-world adventure sometimes. And maybe that's why I'm not so keen on Claws of Axos, because I am binging the season in order. So, maybe it's just a bit of fatigue. I don't know. But it's refreshing to have an alien planet in Pertwee's era. The Doctor and Jo are great as usual. There's some really cool world building in this. I like the world and the society that's created. I really like it. And it's just a fun space adventure. There's some funky alien costumes. There's some cool action set pieces. You've got all these different factions, and it's quite cool, And there's some good commentary of the time, with mining and stuff like that. I'll always describe this episode as the Doctor Who story where George Lucas was inspired to make Star Wars, because obviously George Lucas, when he made the original Star Wars movie, he did take inspiration from a lot of different things, including Doctor Who, and this is the one that it's very Star Warsy. It does feel very much like A New Hope, and also there is a scene where the Doctor is driving across the quarry in a buggy, and he's being watched by one of the Primitives across a mountain, and he's holding up a spear. That is bang on the same shot as when Luke Skywalker is in his land speeder and he's being watched by the Sand People. He's that bit, yeah. Bang on the same shot, pretty much. Number 3, Terror of the Autons. The season opener to this season, and it's really good. And the thing is, with a rewatch, this has massively changed my opinion. I used to think it was a bit meh, just a bit of a knock-off of Spearhead from Space from Season 7. And while nowhere near as good as Spearhead from Space, that's amazing, but this one is still really good as well, and you shouldn't sleep on this one. The Auton threat is very much built upon. It shows other aspects of how they invade, and it's really interesting to see, and adding in the Master is really good, and this is his first story as well. And from the moment he steps out of his TARDIS, he's like, I am usually referred to as the Master. Roger Delgado is my favourite Master, and he's just amazing in this one. He's very villainous. You get all the traits that with the Master, like hypnotism, and you know, he's just all powerful. It's brilliant. It's also the introduction of Joe Grant, you know, and Katie Manning is just wonderful as Joe, brilliant companion, and one of my favourites, I've got to say. Pertwee's amazing. There's some really good action scenes. The Autons are quite creepy, and, you know, the sort of the carnival masks they have, and it's just a really cool story. And there's some really iconic moments in it, like the plastic chair killing a bloke. It's just proper. It's moments like that that make me just love classic Who. It's just, I love it. It's so endearing. Number 2, The Mind of Evil. I think this is a great story. It is a bit long because, again, it is a 6-parter. So there is a bit of back and forth, like the characters get captured, then they escape again, then they get captured, then someone has to rescue them, then they get captured. There is a lot of back and forth, and it does get a bit tiring after a point. But other than that, this is a fantastic story. You know, the idea of the Keller machine, a machine which, you know, removes all negative impulses from people, you know, and make them more effective and stuff. That's a brilliant concept. I love the idea of that. And it, you know, the fact that it's set in this dark prison and it's so cold and atmospheric, it feels like one of these horror stories that you hear about, like human experiments gone wrong, and it's a very dark and gritty story. The Master is phenomenal in this story, and probably in this season at least, the best that the Master was, because there was no other villain in this story. It was just him and his plan, and, you know, none of this other baggage, like there's another monster as well. It is very much his story and his story alone, and he works wonderfully. And Roger Delgado, as I say, is amazing. And the sort of subplot of, you know, the political stuff with the unit and the Brigadier, and, you know, them trying to deactivate this missile as well to, like, for like world peace purposes and stuff like that. The A plot with, you know, and the B plot, they do work side by side, and they don't feel really jarring, and they do come to a head in part 6, and it's a really good conclusion. But yeah, an all-round great story, and if you don't watch it all in one go, and you just sort of break it up, you will really enjoy it, I would say. Number 1, The Daemons. Or The Demons, I can't remember how you say it. The season finale of this series, and it goes out with a bang. Quite literally, as they blow up a church, I think. Now, I've always loved this story. It was one of the first Pertwees I remember watching, and I've always loved it. First time I watched it was like 4 years ago, and revisiting it, I still love it. In fact, I probably love it even more now. I just think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's an Earthbound story, but it adds its own flavour to it, and it makes it memorable in the Pertwee era, because it adds sort of gothic horror elements, like with, you know, the church and the demons and the gargoyles. It adds its own unique flavour, and that's what I think more Pertwee stories should have done to make them stand out just that little bit more. That's why, you know, some of them like Claws of Axos or Day of the Daleks, you know, some of the other Pertwee Earth stories I wasn't too keen on because they felt a bit samey. This one definitely feels more distinct and feels like something you could see in the Tom Baker era. Bok the demon, the little gargoyle, he's just a really cool monster. Azal the big demon, he's really, really, really good. The Master's great. The Doctor and Joe, they're amazing. You know, they're on like riding motorbikes everywhere. It's really cool actually that those bits. There's some great action scenes of Unit, and there's some really good location work, especially at, you know, the village, which is Devil's End in this story, which is really good. And I tell you what, binging the whole season in order, it's really satisfying to finally have the Master captured, because he always escapes. But it's like, if you were a regular viewer back then, or if you're binging it like me in order, it's very gratifying to, you know, finally the Master gets caught and he doesn't escape, he's taken away. And it's just a really cool sort of finale in that way. It really works. But yeah, an absolute classic in every sense of the word. I believe it was Jon Pertwee's favourite story that he did. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason it's got a reputation, because it's a phenomenal story. I love it to bits.